The old locker room. It sat at the very end of the long school hallway, the one nobody ever used, forbidden. Mr. Harrison, the school janitor, always called it unsafe, but Max and Zoe heard other stories. They heard whispers, faint, chilling whispers, drifting from behind that permanently locked door.
Max loved a good mystery.
Zoe did too. Together, they were the unofficial mystery solvers of Maplewood Middle School, and the abandoned locker room, it was their next big case. The whispers seemed to call their names, a creepy, irresistible invitation. They just had to find out what secrets it held.
What did the whispers actually say? That was the million-dollar question.
Sometimes it sounded like a forgotten name, lost in time. Other times it was a desperate plea. It seemed to sigh through the cracks in the door. Max and Zoe knew they had to investigate. Today was finally the day. Max and Zoe exchanged a nervous look. They stood before the locker room door. Max reached for the tarnished brass doorknob. It felt surprisingly loose under his sweaty palm. He took a deep breath. Then he twisted it. Click. The old lock, rusted and forgotten, actually gave way. He pushed the heavy door inward. It groaned loudly. A rush of stale, damp air immediately hit their faces. It smelled awful. Zoe fumbled in her backpack for her trusty flashlight. Click. A weak yellow beam sliced through the oppressive gloom. Rows of dented, rusty lockers lined the walls, like silent metal coffins standing in formation. Thick cobwebs hung everywhere. Water dripped steadily somewhere in the suffocating darkness. Drip, drip, drip. S2. Media group, dripping water sound effect, wet floor and dark, spooky locker room at its stock at a distribute _ equally. Yuck.
Hello?
Max whispered. His voice trembled just a little bit. He didn't really expect an answer. But then he got one. A soft, chilling sigh. It seemed to come from the far end of the long room. Max and Zoe froze instantly. Their wide eyes met in the dim, flickering flashlight beam. This was real. The whispers weren't just schoolyard rumors. They were here.
Did you hear that?
Zoe stammered.
Max nodded slowly. The whisper came again.
It urged, a little fainter this time. It was beckoning them deeper. They crept forward cautiously, past more rows of silent, brooding lockers. The air grew colder, heavier with every single step. Then Zoe let out a small, sharp gasp. She pointed her flashlight beam directly downwards, at the dusty, cracked concrete floor. There, glowing faintly, footprints. Tiny, bare footprints, impossibly there. They shimmered with a strange, unnatural blue light, and the footprints were wet, leaving faint, damp marks on the otherwise bone-dry dust. Max's heart hammered against his ribs. The glowing footprints led them on, deeper into the forgotten locker room, to one specific locker, locker number 7. The mysterious, glowing footprint stopped right in front of it. The voice pleaded. Max reached out a trembling hand towards the locker's rusty metal handle. It felt like a block of ice. He hesitated. Then, summoning all his courage, he pulled. The metal door screeched open with a terrible, rusty shriek. Inside, something lay on the bottom shelf. A small, battered book, a journal. Its cover was warped and heavily stained. As Max carefully picked it up, the back wall of the locker began to shimmer. It rippled, like looking through water. Then, incredibly, it turned transparent. They could see right through it. There was a small hidden room behind the locker, a secret space. Zoe shone her flashlight into the tiny, dark space. The whispers seemed to be coming directly from inside. The voice urged. Zoe carefully, gently opened the ancient journal. The ink was faded and blurred in places, but they could still make out some words. A name. Billy. He wrote about a flood. Billy had been trapped in the locker room, years and years ago. The intense coldness in the air began to lessen. The eerie glowing footprints slowly vanished.